Francisco train. Roll on down. Roll on down, Memphis town. Catch that train. Going down KC. Catch that train. Going down KC. Even past by Memphis, Kansas City, down Tennessee. Well, the train is gonna roll all day, all night. He's gonna roll all day, all night. I hear the kitty howling. Way off in the line. Can't get it rolling. On down to Memphis town. Get it rolling. Down to Memphis town. I hear the kitty howling. Down the line.
Ladies and gentlemen, let them hear it backstage one more time for DJD. You know, Calgary Foundation, this is a fun anecdote, has been a longtime supporter of DJD. In fact, back in 1991, a donor-advised fund of just $126 was contributed to DJD, and that same fund continues to support them today, along with many other organizations across our city. A wonderful reminder of how generosity keeps giving forward. So one more round of applause for them. And for you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zain Velji. Welcome to Vital City 2025. It is my absolute honor to serve as your host tonight. A little bit about me. I'm a born and raised Calgarian. I'm a husband. I have a 2.5-year-old toddler boy who calls food Papa and calls me Zain Velji. You have to raise him right. Sir Zain Velji is what I wanted, but he goes with Zain Velji, it's fine. And welcome to tonight to my lecture, which is a critical review of the new Taylor Swift album. You want to go there? We can. What is an Ophelia? Okay, anyways. That joke was for 30 people, and you are my people. All jokes aside, I am absolutely privileged to be a volunteer in this city with many organizations in the past number of years, and the Calgary Foundation is one of them. And I can tell you firsthand of how deeply this organization touches lives and strengthens communities every single day in this city. We've gathered here for one of my favorite events of the year, the annual celebration, Vital City. And if you've been to one of these Vital Cities before, you know this is much more than just an AGM. Tonight is about connection, inspiration, a shared commitment to building a brighter, more compassionate future regardless of what the world throws at us. It's also, by the way, my 3rd year hosting Vital City. Thank you, I'll take that. I incented it, but I'll take it. That's right, we're going 3 years steady now. ZV and VC, that's us, we're going strong. I know some of you doubted us that we would be going this long, but we have. We have gone this long. My wife said this joke would not work, and there's so much more to this joke. And here's the thing, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna almost encourage you to laugh alongside with me as I die inside. Okay. You know, Vital City and I, we've been through a lot together, some laughs, some forced laughs, some pity laughs because we're Canadian and we don't boo unless it's at a very specific national anthem of another country. But you know, Vital City and I, we're keeping it spicy, folks. Huh? How do you keep it spicy? New venue. Huh? New venue. Seeing each other in a different light. This one's more fluorescent. My script this year, it's shorter, not because I'm lazy, but because, you know, after 3 years of doing something, you get comfortable in a relationship. You stop overcompensating, you stop looking for approval. You can just be in each other's presence, not saying anything. Thank you. Tonight's event, folks, is made possible thanks to one of our investment managers at the Calgary Foundation, Crestpoint Real Estate Investments. Please give it an applause for them. I would also like to thank Modern Rentals for their generous sponsorship. They're the folks that put out that very nice furniture that you had at the reception, so an applause for them as well, please. Here's what you can expect from this evening. So here's our program. First, we'll hear from Calgary Foundation's President and CEO, Eva Friesen. We'll share highlights from the past year, the impact of your support, and a vision of where we're headed to next. Following that, and we're very fortunate that we have him here in Calgary, we'll have our keynote speaker, Peter Katz, whose words and sounds I'm sure will inspire us all. And finally, board chair of the foundation, Narmin Ismail-Teja, will close out our evening. Along the way, of course, there'll be opportunities to connect, reflect, and celebrate the incredible work made possible by the Calgary Foundation, its partners, and all of you. But before we move forward, we want to ground ourselves in the right spirit, to open our evening in a good way. And with that, it is my privilege to invite a friend of the foundation, Elder Casey Eagle-Speaker, to share greetings and blessings.
Okino Kroka, Snukut, Utimiotas. It's Kanakun and Sixkakun. I am Sawhorse, member of the Kanak Nation, part of Black Confederation. My income tax name is Case Eagle Speaker. But we welcome you here. You know, it's been 8 years on a journey of reconciliation that the Calgary Foundation has been doing, and 70 years of service to the city of Calgary. Not too many can achieve that level. The belief that they follow that all people deserve equal and equitable service. And I think that's important. After all, our spirits have a body to have a physical experience in a physical world. And it's through that spirit that we're all interconnected as human beings, our first and true identity. Diverse in culture. And that's important. It's not about differences, but diversity and understanding commonalities and parallels with each other. Vital Calgary is a very important, Vital Cities is an important part of who Calgary is. I can't help but wonder the beauty of our children, grandchildren, and those yet to be born, what they are going to experience by what you, as fellow Calgarians who believe that this city can thrive and shine brighter than any other city. We have this common responsibility, a collective responsibility for the well-being of our people and our community. You are a beautiful example of that. But we do caution people. You know, this old man that was getting ready to pass into the spirit world told his wife, when I pass, I want you to take all my money and put them into white satin bags with a white ribbon, put them in the attic. So when I cross over to the spirit world, I'll take those with me. When he finally passed, she obliged and did just exactly what he wanted, put him in the attic. A couple months later, she got curious. I wonder if he did take them with him. Made her way up to the attic and looked, and the bags were still there, and said, oh, that SOB. He didn't go up, he went down. I do have to apologize that I do have to leave right after this. I have my sun dancers going through their first day of fasting and ceremonies, and I get back out there to continue with their teachings. But then most people really know me that I don't really go into three-piece suits. They normally see me in t-shirts and jeans in the spring and summer, and normally see me in sweatshirts and jeans in the fall and winter. My wife dresses me once in a while, and I feel naked when she does that. But just to let you know a little bit about me, I am a grandfather of 26. And I've been miscounting all this time. Because on October 2nd, we had our 22nd great-grandchild. So, thank you. These are the generations that we look at. We look at our young people as the experts of the now and the leaders of tomorrow. It's what we do collectively that will guide that light to the future, where we don't have to ever look at starvation, homelessness. We don't have to look at people living on the streets through addictions. It is a dream, and dreams can become reality when we take that collective responsibility and say, we will take that walk together. It's like reconciliation, the calls to action. Identify one that you can actually do. Then let us know, and we will walk with you together on that journey. It's a dual responsibility. Aio napi natus. Aia ko kemikitsmak. Ipasas tuopsatsak. Ken sapanak kusiksak when stomuhpo okak. Ogin sap opistan okistikoika mohkinsak. Kekimatusak. Okiang says bad pilpak. And you come out stomach, otomu okak. Kekimatasak. Actually, Chikimak Pescopisak. Kiang Kuku Sekspia Pots the Beat Simmakak. No paper by Canata Pilkak. Actually, seen it sapu to an nanak. Ogn paper and pet people and scraps of Pokak. Actually, Chiki Suppics to Capus, like a system up, I can a sack cartoons and nanak. Ogn Saki Mats bed pilpak, Saki the Chikoku Sixak, Mother Koi Okak. Okay, my good story, Ken, some of copy or her pay pushman. Ken she starts to see some cinema cat to be kaki, some milk kak. Or can I keep my dust bed pack? Can I see the map see a poke out or come at the bill kak? Or can accept a mochak or God seems I can get up scope at some week kanak. Okay, keep my dust as the bed pack. Or can I soap on the Christico at some week kanak. Aktai kaki to many better pieces and that ben no keep an skek him at up cheetah piece and look at psychos banana kiss quick, I get people to keep in. O can ik bad birds come if strike cuckoo six out, o can ik matapio, canatapio, o can ik napio, keep boys come sana, come a dance kaki, some better piece and give my pieces. So thank you.
Hand to heart, Elder Casey, thank you for your wisdom and your thoughtful words and for being here this evening. In that same spirit of gratitude and respect, I'd like to take a moment to honor and acknowledge Wokinstis and the traditional Treaty 7 territory and oral practices of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Stoney Nakoda Nations Chiniki, Bearspaw, Goodstoney, and Tsuut'ina Nation. We acknowledge that the territory is home to the Otipemisiwak Métis government and the Métis Nation within Alberta Districts 5 and 6. Finally, we acknowledge all nations, Indigenous and non, who live, work, and play on this land and who honor and celebrate this territory. As a child of immigrants, this place where I was born and I've called home for most of my life, I consider myself fortunate to live, work, and play on this land, and I remember we are all treaty people. All right, folks, I've given you the rundown. Let's begin this evening together. And I should mention, before I bring Eva up here, this is a special year for the Calgary Foundation because this is a meaningful year that celebrates the 70th anniversary of the Calgary Foundation. Seven decades of impact, generosity, and community. That's 70 years of people like you coming together to make a difference. And tonight, we get a chance to start writing that next chapter. Now, before we welcome Calgary Foundation's President and CEO, Eva Friesen, to the stage, we want to share a story that shows the impact of your collective generosity in action. This short video highlights the Foundation's impact investing program and the incredible difference it's making. After the video, Eva will take the stage to share more about the Foundation's work and vision for the future. Please enjoy.
The task force started almost 20 years ago. Over the years, we've helped over probably 30,000 animals through spay neuter, vaccines, parasite treatment. So during the pandemic, we opened up a temporary space in Calgary, and what became so apparent to us is that this need is so large. So for us, it was a no-brainer. We needed to develop a permanent space. When we started, it was very overwhelming because there were so many logistics and pieces to pull together. So we were really going into this with huge dreams, and we ran into a lot of barriers at first. We were concerned, are we going to be able to pull this off? Finding a space was quite challenging. We found a space, and we needed to act quickly to make sure we could secure the space. So when we first reached out to the Calgary Foundation for this loan, we were honest in that this project, we wanted to move quick. It was shocking when we said, we needed the funds by this date, and it did happen. And that allowed us to secure this building.
Calgary Foundation's been providing loans for about a decade now, and it started on an ad hoc basis where we recognized that there were unconventional credit needs in the community that conventional banks just couldn't respond to. So we could play an impactful role in the community as a lender.
So local charities of all shapes and sizes and missions can borrow from Calgary Foundation. In conversations with our borrowers, the most common piece of feedback that we get is that they appreciate the flexibility, whether that's a flexible repayment plan, whether it's the prepayment flexibility. That's kind of where our offerings shine for organizations who might have more unconventional needs.
With a loan from Calgary Foundation, you end up with something that very closely resembles the financing you'd get from a bank. It is repayment with interest. The real difference is that we can be really flexible in how we put repayment schedules together, so it can be really tailored to the circumstances of the project. It was really great to see and get to know the impact that this organization has, not just through this animal hospital, but in their role in community. Being able to offer something like this locally, it was really exciting to get to know why this animal hospital was the right next thing for them, and how credit could be a small piece of the puzzle in helping them figure out how to get there.
It's great that we're able to provide care where before we could not. The fact that we have our own hospital, that we can keep these cases and work on them ourselves is very rewarding. We're very grateful to the Calgary Foundation. What we're doing is very necessary work, but it's really challenging to find funding streams for it because what we're doing is unique. So that's why it's nice to have things like the Calgary Foundation that are able and willing to provide funding in ways that are also unique.
If we would not have received the loan through the Calgary Foundation, I feel confident that we would not be open right now. It was instrumental in making this come to life, and especially the timeline. They just made it so much easier, and it was flexible. They wanted it to be successful. They wanted our project to be successful, and so it was a well-supported process. We are receiving tons of calls and emails from people who are just desperate for help with their animals, and it's just a constant reminder to us that we need to continue the work we do, we need to expand the work we do, and we can only do this with the support of the Calgary Foundation.
Charities and nonprofits have a variety of needs, and their borrowing needs can take lots of different shapes and sizes. The common theme is that the important work that needs to happen today can't wait until the money arrives tomorrow. And that creates a situation where borrowing funds is needed to make the good work happen. That's been wonderful to be able to be in a place where we can respond to that increasing need for borrowing to make sure important work in all aspects of the charitable sector can happen.
$82,000 square feet of art space, 46 charitable and not-for-profit organizations living together in a co-location office space, and 181 units of affordable housing. Those are just some of the impacts achieved by making loans to charities. Since starting the Impact Investing Program about 10 years ago, we have made 27 investments totaling over $32 million. Over $21 million has been repaid to date, including 13 loans that have been repaid in full. Money is being recycled as intended. That charities can get loans from Calgary Foundation is one of the best kept secrets, but Alex Laidlaw, who leads this program, is out to bust that secret. He's been using his LinkedIn to publish stories about the loan programs every Wednesday. He calls it Why Borrow Wednesdays. I call him Rockstar Alex. This culminates in a free webinar on Wednesday, October 22nd at noon. Scan the QR code above me to register. And I'm supposed to have the clicker up here and nobody going. There we go. That was an oopsie. So I'm moving past. If you didn't scan it, you can call us later. I'm Eva Friesen, and I'm President and CEO of the Calgary Foundation. And yes, that was a shameless promotion of our upcoming webinar. This is our 70th year, and someone asked me, well, what are you doing special for your 70th? Well, we're throwing this party, of course. And they said, well, don't you do this every year? No, the others are just a celebration. This is a party. And what's different, there were balloons out front. Did you see them? And I hope you got your picture with the balloons. So this is our 70th birthday party. When you're 70, I think you could throw your own party. Now, as I imagine a typical 70th birthday party, and I can only imagine it because I have not had one myself, I imagine that we would reflect on the beginning, how we came to be, with gratitude for our parents. Meet our parents. 3 men who cared about their community. Grant McEwen, an educator, agriculturalist, a historian, and was mayor of the city. Ed Braden was the city's solicitor, who waived his fees to incorporate the Calgary Foundation. But the man who led this initiative was Doug Hawkes, a World War II veteran who never forgot the generosity of strangers during his years as a prisoner of war, and he wanted to pay it forward. Now, the creation of a community foundation solved the problem that large amounts of money were tied up in estates, attended by the deceased to go to community needs. But by the time they died, those needs were obsolete, and they were stuck in estates and couldn't go meet those needs. A community foundation would solve this problem by being an enduring organization to whom people could leave their excess wealth, knowing and trusting that leaders of the day would ensure the money went to critical needs of the day. The first community foundation was started in Cleveland, Ohio in 1914. The first in Canada was the Winnipeg Foundation, started in 1921. McEwen, Braden, and Hawkes traveled to Cleveland and Winnipeg to learn about these early foundations. Here in Calgary, the United Way started about 10 years earlier, but did not fund capital projects or experimental projects to test new ideas. These 3 founders identified this was a niche for the Calgary Foundation. It would attract gifts from estates rather than run an annual fundraising campaign so as to not compete with United Way. And today that niche still remains very relevant. We grant to capital projects as well as programs. We often grant to pilot projects that test new ideas, and we don't fundraise to avoid competition with the very charities that we exist to support. I imagine a 70th birthday would be filled with lots of remember whens. Remember when those first grants were made to the United Way and Mount Royal College? Boy, over the years since then, they have become such strong partners with what we do. Remember when so-and-so wouldn't pay his pledge, and we refused to fill his tank with gas at the gas station we owned until he paid up? Can you believe how long it took those 20 original founders, donors, to pay up their $5,000 each? It took 10 years. Remember when the Herald wrote a story describing us as the church mouse poor foundation that didn't match the glitter of its board of directors. Boy, didn't that get Hayden Smith mad. And he got going, and he created $1 million dinner that raised $2 million in one night. Remember when we got that $1 million anonymous donation so we could give very targeted support to neighborhoods in small grants? What a difference that made to so many small groups working to help people belong in their neighborhoods. Remember when the Canoff Foundation wound down and gifted its assets to us and asked us to ensure the charitable purpose of the Canoff Center would continue? Those people thought we were the hardest people to give a gift to because we did due diligence for well over a year, just in case it was a lemon. But it wasn't. And because of Decidedly Jazz Danceworks, who we just saw, incredible support with their fundraising efforts, they became the anchor tenant, and a second tower was built to house them. And that also gave us the new space at the Calgary Foundation. This new expanded Canoff Center was truly a transformation of both the charitable sector as a co-location of many charities, and it transformed the Beltline with the dance center opening right to the street. Remember the 2013 flood. And at the community's request, we hosted a flood fund, and together with the Red Cross and the United Way, we made grants to meet the needs that emerged. Remember when Doc Seaman left his entire estate to the Calgary Foundation? That was a gift that transformed us, and it transformed the community. Because of that generous gift, we could start a major grants program and could give away $1 million at a time. Remember when the federal government published the Truth and Reconciliation Report, and we all deepened our understanding of a messy part of our history, and we committed to start our own reconciliation journey. Remember when George Floyd was murdered and the Black Lives Matter movement began, and together with the world, we deepened our understanding of the lack of equity for so many groups in our communities, and we committed to equity and inclusion for all. Remember the pandemic? We all became Zoom experts, and we learned how to pivot. We used our granting capacity in those several years to support the emerging rebuilding needs. "70 years of growth certainly illustrates the power of an endowment. The endowment model is fundamental to a community foundation, and that is a key thing that differentiates us from so many other charities. In this model, donations are invested in perpetuity and grants are made from the income. Generally, it takes 20 years for a fund to grant out the same amount that was initially gifted, and the size of the fund is larger at that point than the original gift, and it continues to generate investment income that is granted. It just keeps on giving. At our annual checkup this year, on our 70th birthday, it showed a good heart rate, with 81 million in new gifts received, thanks to the ongoing generosity of so many Calgarians. Some of these new gifts went to existing funds, while others went to 81 new funds that were established. Due to the new gifts and the growth of the investment, our asset base is now just over $1.5 billion. And this asset base fuels our grant making, enabling us to grant over 83 million last year to more than 1,300 charities. At the end of our fiscal year, March 31st, the cumulative grant making reached 987 million, just short of that billion that we've been holding our breath for. And that number crossed the $1 billion line the exact month of our birthday, that being April. We do keep our eyes on investment returns. I think of that in the health respect as our blood pressure over the long run, and we're pleased to see that we're just ahead of the benchmark, but we do fall short of our target by just a smidge. Our target is 8% because we grant 5, we cost about 1, and we want to reinvest 2 to protect against inflation. Our annual report gives many more statistics. It's available at the back of the room or where you came in. Now, supporting the charitable sector is why we exist, and we use tonight to celebrate some of the great work done by so many charities in our community. Many, many grants are made, and they vary greatly in size, from the largest last year of almost $6 million to the Alberta Children's Hospital from a donor-advised fund, to the smallest of $74 to a student from a scholarship fund. For the application-based grant programs, we get many, many more requests than we can fund. We can support about half of the requests that we receive, so the need in community continues to outpace the resources available. But whether big or small, all grants make a difference. And I'd like to share just 2 stories of impact. You can watch the transformation of this first one in the video that's rolling on the screen. And this is the home upgrades we supported at one of L'Arche Calgary homes. L'Arche Association of Calgary serves people with intellectual disabilities through a very wide range of programs, including several homes. We supported L'Arche with a $200,000 grant to do accessibility and safety upgrades in the Kitchiuk House to enhance the aging in place experience for adults with intellectual disabilities. Now, Kitchiuk means revered one in Cree, and is also the word used to describe people with intellectual disabilities. The renovation has strengthened L'Arche's commitment to inclusive design and created a new benchmark for future home upgrades within the L'Arche Calgary community. We're thrilled to be a small part of L'Arche's journey to create a place of friendship where everyone is valued for their unique gifts. Now, the residents of that home left during the renovation, and when they came home, they were absolutely awestruck by the transformation that took place while they were gone. Now, a grant doesn't have to be big to have a big impact. Small grants have big impacts too. One of our Stepping Stone grants, which was the smallest program that we have, supported volunteers with the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association to organize a Legacy Circle High Tea for seniors. Youth volunteers from very many cultures and different backgrounds helped out. The seniors enjoyed Caribbean music, games, storytelling, and a group poetry reading. One of the seniors stood up during the collective poem reading and tearfully said, "I haven't felt at home this much in decades." Now, a 70th birthday party is a good time to bust some myths. And the myth I want to bust is that Calgary Foundation is just for the very wealthy. In fact, gifts received vary greatly in size, from the largest gift last year of almost 14 million to the smallest of just $1. To start your own donor-advised fund requires about $10,000, and we have many people, especially young people, who take several years to reach that minimum before it's allowed to grant. Now, instead of opening birthday cards, I want to open the Quality of Life report that was just launched, and I want to show you a few highlights, share a few highlights. Generally speaking, it was a pretty positive report. 42% of Calgarians, more than last year, reported a positive economic outlook. Calgarians rated their quality of life higher than last year, with 66% feeling it was good to excellent. Generally, people reported higher levels of happiness, stronger confidence in their finances, and a renewed sense of optimism. We've come a long way from the pandemic. But just beneath those encouraging results lies another truth. Not everyone is experiencing this upward trend. While many are thriving, others are struggling. Those on the margins continue to face persistent barriers to employment, housing, and food security. What surprised me most about this year's report is that many people are lonelier now than they were during the pandemic lockdown. And the loneliest people are the young adults age 18 to 34. And that's the future generation of leaders in our community. When you take a deeper dive below the surface to see how are young adults doing, we see that they are faring worse in many dimensions than the average Calgarian. They feel less positive about their economic opportunities. They're more likely to plan to leave the city. They're almost twice as likely to use community food services. They are much more stressed about finances. And fewer young adults report good mental health. And that number declines again for young adults who are students. It should be concerning to us that a whole generation is lacking confidence in Calgary's promise. Another revealing statistic and disturbing to the charitable sector is that volunteering and donations are at an all-time low. While there is progress on many fronts, this report is a reminder that progress is not equally experienced by all. A stronger Calgary is one that leaves no one behind. Calgary Foundation's vision is to create a community where everyone belongs. Clearly, we still have a job to do. We use this report at the Calgary Foundation to shape our strategy in grant making, and we hope that you find it useful in the work that you do. And there's copies of it available also in the foyer where you came in. Now, a 70th birthday does not end without a whole lot of gratitude and words of thanks. I have immense gratitude for the vision of those 3 founders and the 20 initial donors, the builders and all the builders that came before us. Although these times today are so different, so very different than they were in 1955, their vision still resonates, and the endowment model has proven to be masterfully effective, making it possible to have granted the $1 billionth to community in this, our 70th year. And I am sure that surpasses even the wildest dreams of those 3 founders, and were they here today, they would be so proud. I want to thank the fabulous team of about 49 that I enjoy working with every day. Together with all of my colleagues, it is our pleasure to serve you, our community. I also want to recognize and thank the Board of Directors, a dedicated and passionate group who governs this organization with integrity and a commitment to service. You'll hear later from our new board chair, Narmin. And she recently took over the reins from Blaine Lennox. It is truly my pleasure and all of us staff to work with all of these fine people for the good of community. Our time with the foundation is just a brief part of its perpetuity journey. I'd like to acknowledge all the people that came before us building this foundation to serve our community. And I want to acknowledge all the people who will come after us to continue to advance the mission of supporting philanthropy and the charitable sector to create a community where everyone belongs and no one is left behind. Today, that seems harder to achieve. In today's world of polarization, it is my birthday wish for us, our foundation, that we might find the way to be the bridge across differences. Those are such beautiful words, a bridge across differences. But it is probably the most difficult thing to be, and we're going to take the next year focusing on learning, discovering how we might play a role in being that, along with many others. And to be a connector and a collaborator that brings people and ideas together, because in that diversity of thought and opinions about ideas, we will find the best solutions to the very complex problems we face today. And now I'm going to turn it back to Zain.
Oh my goodness, so many things packed into that address. Let me just run through a few things. I was just standing backstage that caught my attention. And can I start with one that I think we all absorbed, but I really want us to absorb? $1 billion granted by the Calgary Foundation. Eva also walked us through some sobering stats about what's happening in our community around quality of life, around young people, around philanthropic giving. And we also learned, that this organization shares an incredible, rich narrative of remember when moments, and how appropriate that we are now in an era where we're writing our own remember when moments as well. Final thing I learned is do not ignore your LinkedIn messages. It's not just people trying to sell you AI tools. Is that what everyone's LinkedIn is? Just everyone's wanting to sell me AI tools every day. Alex wants to give you money and help your organization grow, so do not ignore your LinkedIn messages as well. Thank you, Eva. Folks, it is time for our keynote speaker, and I am very excited about this because Peter Katz is a Juno and Canadian Screen Award nominated singer-songwriter and one of the country's most in-demand speakers and keynotes. Fans have called him a thunderbolt for the soul. For 15 years, he's toured the world, shared stages with Academy Award winner and Grammy nominee Glenn Hansard and Garth Hudson from the band. He's racked up more than 30 million streams and 26 million YouTube views. He's even had his music play at the Rio Olympics. He's also addressed the House of Commons. I want to clarify that with him, which is super cool. But I want to leave you with this before Peter comes on stage. His go-to quote, his go-to saying is, "We become what we celebrate." So how appropriate then on the 70th birthday in a concert space with a world-class musician, and how lucky are we to have in Calgary? Please give a warm welcome for Peter Katz.
For all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the hard to say, for everything that comes and goes along the way, I'm gonna celebrate. I still remember that place and time, just shy of 20 when I realized that someday I was gonna die, and it could be soon. I was lying in that hospital room with all the tests that they were putting me through. When I got out, everything seemed new. I felt so alive. So for all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the hard to say, for everything that comes and goes along the way, I'm gonna celebrate. I had a love that I was promised to, then she became someone I hardly knew. All the past that she was winding through didn't wind my way. Sometimes your plans, you gotta let them go. Get into growing like you've never grown. Hands on the handles of the great unknown and cut the lines away. So for all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the hard to say, for everything that comes and goes along the way. I'm gonna celebrate. Ooh, oh yeah. Ooh, oh yeah. For every indecision when I lost my way, every moment wishing for the words to say, all of them, they made me who I am today. And so I celebrate for all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the kind of hard to say. For every hand I'm holding as I'm fading away, I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna celebrate. Why, thank you very much. Nobody wanted to be in the splash zone up here? You're still welcome to join the splash zone if you want. It's a real pleasure to be with all of you. I mean, one thing I'll say is I wish we were in a nicer place, but we'll make do. We are really here to celebrate, and Eva, I'm sorry, I'm going to slightly disagree with your party celebrate statement in a moment, but it is a bit of a party as well. But I really believe that we're here to celebrate, which happens to line up really well with what I've spent my life doing, which is helping people and now organizations celebrate what matters. And so tonight, we're going to be talking all about this idea that when we define what matters most, and then we celebrate it consistently, then we start to see what matters most playing itself out in the daily actions of the people, the teams within our organizations. And as I'll talk about, it's actually not just within our organizations and our teams. The same applies with our loved ones and the people at home who start acting and showing up in ways that maybe we haven't seen before. And I'm going to show you how to do it. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about this word celebrate, because I just sang it like 47 times, and I'm going to be saying it a whole lot, and I want to kind of make sure that we're on the same page with the definition of that word. Because a lot of times when people hear the word celebrate, I think they sort of mix it up with the word party. And nothing wrong with a great party, but I think in many ways we actually party to forget, but we celebrate to remember. We party to forget, but we celebrate to remember. If you think about it, celebrations are kind of the golden threads in the fabric of our lives. Celebrations are what remains when the fog of life dissipates. What do we do when somebody passes away? We do a celebration of life. And what do we do at that celebration of life? Well, we celebrate the moments that mattered most. We celebrate the values that they stood for. We celebrate the lives that they touched and impacted. So by my definition, when we're talking about celebrating, we're talking about taking what matters most and making it matter most with intention. And I want to take you back to a couple of stories that really helped sort of clarify this for me. So in the beginning of my career, like the first, 7, 8 years or so, I had built myself up. I was playing 150 shows a year. And I can tell you that about 149 of those shows were terrible. I was sleeping on floors, driving through snowstorms, not playing to a lot of people. I once played in a city I won't name, and there were 2 people there. And somehow those 2 people managed to get into a fight with each other, and then they took it outside to beat each other up. True story. I was just left there being like, well, at least I'm practicing, and that's why I haven't been back to St. Catharines. Thank you very much. So, shots fired, right? Okay, so I actually have been back, but not to that place. Anyways, it wasn't all terrible. There were these little pockets of fans that started paying attention to my music. I even got nominated for a Juno Award. But at the end of the day, it felt like it. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh.
I lost, all right? So hold your applause. You know, at the end of the day, it still felt like it wasn't really adding up. And I remember I was standing in my kitchen one day, and I said to my friend, I said, it's not working. And as I said those words, it's not working, all of that energy that I'd been using to hold up the walls, you know, that energy that we draw on to like give off the impression that we have it all under control. Well, that energy left my body, and I collapsed to my kitchen floor, and I cried like I've never cried before. I said, it's not working. But I had another tour booked. So I picked myself up off the floor, and I got in my car, and I drove across the country, and, you know, same old, same old. And then I see that I'm booked to play in a place called Fort Macleod in Alberta. Anywhere else in Canada, it's like silence, right? But the 3 people that used to live in Fort Macleod that moved to Calgary are here tonight, all right? So anyways, it was normal for me to play a town I'd never heard of before. But what wasn't normal was that I was booked to play at a place called the Empress Theater, right? And in my head, I was like, Empress Theater, like that sounds very nice. And sure enough, it's this 300-seat soft seat theater. I'm thinking, wow. I'm also thinking, who is going to come to the show? Because I played it to like 6 people last night in Winnipeg. And so I walk out on stage, and I'm expecting the worst. And the place is packed. And not only is it packed, it's not that they thought that Coldplay was coming to Fort Macleod that night. All right, they're actually there to see me. They know all of my songs. They're singing them back to me. They've made these like homemade signs like, we love you, Peter. After the show, there's literally a lineup of people to talk to me. I'm signing autographs, taking selfies, like just the most incredible moment. And finally, you know, after the show, everybody clears out. And I walk up to these 2 guys that have organized this show, and I'm like, guys, like, what happened here? And they say, well, Peter, we run this 12-day program for teenagers. It's called Faces. And at Faces, we take the teenagers up into the mountains of Alberta, and we take them hiking and rock climbing and whitewater canoeing. And we don't care if they get good at those things. We just care that they learn how to do things that challenge them, that they face their fears, they develop empathy, supporting each other. And this program is free for the students because they're earning high school credits. But because they're earning credits, we had to come up with some kind of curriculum. So we wrote this emotional curriculum that has all these different themes. And in order to anchor the learning of those themes, we have been using your songs. So basically, hundreds of kids every summer are being forced to learn my music. I was like, that is truly amazing. Like, this is the business model I have been waiting for, right? I was like, how do we just force everybody? Let's legislate this, come on. And they say, actually, Peter, there's more to the story. I'm like, well, you have my attention. They say, well, we don't really have a hiring policy here at Faces. We just find people that we know would be perfect to work for us, and we go after them. And we reached out to your manager. We're like, hey, will Peter come work for us? He said, hey, no. So we just organized this show so we could ask you directly. HR people take note, all right? Will you come work for us? And of course, you know, I just met all these kids. My heart is like bursting. I'm like, yes, you know, and anything you say, I will do it. And a few months later, I flew out to the mountains of Alberta, and I had the most unbelievable 12 days of my life. And now, 13 years later, every single summer since, except 2, #global pandemic, every single summer since, I put my career on pause. I fly out to the mountains of Alberta, and I now actually run that program for part of the summer, every summer, and it's the best thing that I do. I was really fascinated when, you know, they were talking about this curriculum, and I'm like, let me see this curriculum, and my lyrics are like printed, and I was like, I should sue you, but this is amazing, it's fine, right? You know, go ahead. Anyways, they talk about a character-building experience, and if you want to know what that looks like, this is the Lower Saskatchewan River, and these students are about to go for a very character-building swim, right? Now, here's the thing. When I decided in my life that I was going to be a singer-songwriter, I thought I was going to play some shows, and then, some guy with like an alligator leather suit was going to walk up to me and be like, I'm going to make you a star, right? And I was going to sign a contract, and then I was going to be playing the Bella concert halls of the world. It wasn't on my radar. It wasn't anywhere in my brain that I was going to be on a mountaintop with a bunch of teenagers because I'd taken these songs that I'd written in my bedroom and started playing them for people. It wasn't on my radar that I'd get an email from a woman telling me that as her baby was being born, she had my music on in the birthing room so her child could enter the world to the sound of my voice. That was a niche I wasn't aware of, but let's force everybody, get the babies out, like whatever we got to do, right? It wasn't on my radar that I would get an email from a woman telling me that she was getting married, but that her father couldn't walk her down the aisle because he had passed away a couple years earlier, so she walked down the aisle to a song of mine that the two of them had loved together as a way of kind of having him there. And it wasn't on my radar that I get an email from a woman named Barbara telling me that as her husband of nearly 50 years was dying in the hospital, asked to put on one of my songs, and they put on my songs for him, and in the final moments of his life, my music was there. And later that year, Barbara's kids wanted to do something to cheer her up after a very difficult year, and so they reached out and they said, hey, would Peter come play at Barbara's birthday party? And so I said, yes, I will. And I drove to Ottawa, and I set up in her living room, and they sent her off on some bogus errand. And then she walks in, and I'm standing there, and she sees me. She gets the biggest smile across her face. She drops everything that she's holding. And for the next 90 minutes, it was all request for Barbara in her living room. Yeah. We had mimosas that morning as well, I believe. So here's the thing. All of these things that I just shared with you, these little stories that I shared, for me, are really proof of two things. Number one, and this certainly applies to the people in this room, is we don't actually know the full impact of the work that we do out in the world. We don't control that part. We control how we show up for it. I did several interviews in preparation for tonight. I was meeting with Leanne from the Urban Society of Aboriginal Youth. And she shared a little story with me about how she would send the kids home with pizza. And years later, one of the kids said to her, that pizza fed my family. And she didn't really think about it. It was just something that she did, but it was creating this impact that she had no idea was being created. And so everybody in this room, we are creating impacts that we don't actually know. But number two, what these stories reveal, and what we're really going to be focusing in on over the next 27 minutes or so, is that what you choose to celebrate in your life and your work plays a significant role in what your life and your work becomes. That opportunity with Faces, if you think about it, it wasn't just luck, right? It came about because of the songs that I was singing, which were infused with what I had defined as mattering most to me, with my mission, my vision, my values. And I never could have imagined that the songs would be out there creating those impacts. I just knew what mattered to me, and I put that into my songs. And if you think about it, right, when you write a song, what are you doing? Well, what you're really doing is you're taking the invisible and you're making it visible. You're taking a feeling, an idea, and you're saying, hey, this one matters. Let's remember this. And once it has the form of a song, well, all of a sudden it becomes functional. It can create an impact, right? Someone can walk down the aisle to it. A youth mentoring program can use it as part of their curriculum. And I know that all of you in this room, you don't necessarily have songs, but you do have ways of being. You have your own mission, vision, values. You have ways of showing up that make you, your charities, your philanthropy, your leadership unique. And for most people, they think, this is, just the way that I do things. I've done thousands of interviews in preparation for my talks over the years. And I see it all the time. People just think that, this is just the way I do things. They don't think it's that remarkable. But when others hear about your stories, they find it extraordinary. They find it inspiring. It expands their thinking of what's possible for them. It makes them want to support you. It makes them trust you. It makes them want to be led by you. So who you are deserves to be celebrated. And in fact, I would argue it needs to be celebrated, and celebrated in the right way. Because when you celebrate in the right way, what you do is you take intentional action to elevate the story of achievement, of a success, of a challenge that you overcame. And just like with the song, you say, hey, this one matters. Let's remember this. And if you do it well, then there's two things that happen. Is number one, you reveal some of the recipe of the success. You actually make that success now repeatable. And number two is you create this wave of inspiration for others to create more of the same. As you celebrate, the transformation actually happens in real time. And so it's not this big thing that we need to change. It's actually just this little thing that creates these big impacts. Defining what matters most and celebrating it consistently. Now, I know this to be true because I have the great privilege of working with all kinds of organizations. I get to work with companies like Johnson & Johnson and Sick Kids Hospital and the Cooperators and the Bethany Group up north here in Alberta. And I get to do one of the most important things you can do as an organization, and yet it's rarely getting done, or if it's getting done, it's rarely getting done well. And what we do is the same thing that we do when I write a song. We take the invisible and we make it visible. We define what matters most, and we celebrate it through storytelling. And as we do this, we celebrate mission, we celebrate vision, we celebrate values, and we literally transform organizational character. We create happier, healthier, more connected, more productive teams. Now, I do this with organizations, but I also try to practice what I preach at home with the people that I love and care about. And everything that I'm sharing with you here tonight, I hope can be relevant to you both personally and professionally. So I also do this with my loved ones. So I am the baby of 4 siblings. That's me over there. I know, so cute. There I am, challenging authority, right? Like, who's this guy, right? Don't know that I want to listen to him, right? Okay? And you know, I always would have said that we were close, and we are close. But 3 Christmases ago, I was home for the holidays, and I woke up with this curiosity in my mind. I don't know what it's like for you, you know, in your holidays, but I'm sure for many of you it's similar to mine, where it's this like beautiful chaos, right? There's a lot of people, and that's kind of the time every year that I spend the most time with my siblings. And so I woke up with this question in my head, and the question was, when was the last time that just the 4 of us, like the OG crew, were together without all the other people? And I did some quick math on it, and I realized that it had been 27 years. 27 years since just the 4 of us were together. And I thought, okay, I do this work professionally, I should do this with my family. So I sent a little message, I said, hey, I know there's variables, but could we find some time, just the 4 of us? I want to facilitate a little conversation. Thankfully, they all said yes. Next day, we went to a coffee shop near my mom's house, and I just asked them 3 questions. Question number 1, what is the biggest strength, lesson, gift, wisdom that you regularly draw on in your life that you feel you gain from having been part of this family? Question number 2, what is something you love about yourself that no matter what changes in your life, you would want to maintain? And question number 3, if we have the good fortune of being back here again a year from now, what would you most like to be celebrating? I see a bunch of you taking photos, which I love, because so many people have told me that they've brought these to their siblings. Just know you're welcome to take all the photos you want. I'll also have all the slides for you, a QR code at the end, so just know that I've got your back, all right? So I asked them these 3 questions. And then over the course of the next 2.5 hours, we laughed, we cried, we shared, we connected in a way that I don't think we ever had before. It was one of the most connected times I've ever had with my siblings. And if you think about it, we got more connected simply by asking ourselves what connects us. We became more of the family and the siblings that we wish to be simply by taking this little bit of time to define what matters most to us and to celebrate it through our stories together. Much like you might become the charities, the philanthropist, develop the personal relationships through a similar process, and I'm going to give you a couple of tools to help you exactly with that. And guess what? We did it again the next year. We did it again the next year. And yes, I wore plaid every single time, all right? My sister got on board last year, all right. But I look at this photo and I think, like, how many more Christmases would have just gone by without the transformation that occurred in just a couple of hours that ripples throughout the year? Now, there's a big idea that underlines all of this work that I do professionally and personally that just sort of hit me one day, and I am certain from doing this work is true. And that is, the more that you celebrate your mission, vision, values, the more you become your mission, vision, values. We become what we celebrate. Your stories reveal the recipes of your success, and they provide the inspiration to create more of them. Who you are goes from being invisible to being visible, repeatable. Now, I could tell you how great this is all night long. I am super passionate about this, but I feel in some ways it's like me standing up here telling you how great chocolate cake is, and I'd rather just cut you a little slice, okay? So we're going to give you a little slice. I wish I had the opportunity to get you all connecting with each other, because that's like my favorite thing to do, but as the next best thing, I was speaking with Eva and Taylor from the Calgary Foundation, and I said, hey, would it be okay if I could interview some of the recipients so I could gather some of their stories and reveal some of their success and some of their inspiration for the audience tonight? Thankfully, they said yes, and so I want to share 2 of those stories with you right now. So I got to meet with the amazing Leanne, who I mentioned earlier, who is the director of the Urban Society for Aboriginal Youth, USAY. And Leanne and I just had the most amazing conversation. And she said, Peter, when I first got into this work, to be honest, I was a bit of this do-gooder mentality. I thought I was there to fix these youth. And I was just sort of following my training that, I needed to keep this professional distance, and, I was there to save them. And the net result of that was the youth did not show up. We could barely give out 25 backpacks. But there was a turning point in Leanne's career that gave her the lesson that would change everything. Leanne was having a difficult time in her own life. She was dealing with imposter syndrome. She was feeling homesick. And she was sitting there with a youth who was, sharing her soul with her, and Leanne was kind of sitting there trying to keep it together. And at a certain point, she just couldn't. And as the youth shared, she said, I feel that way too sometimes. And in that moment, the youth said, really? And leaned in, and they had the most unbelievable, connected human conversation. Now that youth, 20 years later, who's now a grown woman, still is connected to USAY. She comes and volunteers and gives out backpacks. She makes the cotton candy at their events, and she calls Leanne every year on her birthday. And Leanne said to me, she said, I realized you can't fix people who aren't broken. All that the youth need is they need someone to connect and care about them. And she even broke one of her own rules one day, and she said, I started telling the youth, I love you, because I do. And you know what happened? They started saying, I love you back. And Leanne said, when you take down the walls, that's when you create the real connection. And it doesn't make you a bad social services provider. It actually makes you more real and more effective. And she also said, this shift didn't just change the way that she interacted with the youth, it actually changed everything for her. She started kind of rethinking everything that she was doing. She said, well, like, why are we doing things the way that we've just always done them? And to give you a quick example, they were doing a ribbon cutting ceremony because they were opening the new Indigenous Youth Center. And so, to just kind of do what they'd always done, they would have just had this big red ribbon. But she took a step back and she said, like, what are we going to do with this ribbon? We're going to have this giant ribbon and then just like throw it in the garbage? That doesn't really feel like aligned with our values. It kind of feels a little colonial and wasteful. And so she reimagined the ribbon cutting ceremony. And instead of the big disposable ribbon, she made this fabric ribbon, and they cut it with the big scissors. And then they invited every single stakeholder to come up and cut a little piece of the ribbon and create tobacco ties. And in the tradition of tobacco ties, they then took those tobacco ties with the ribbon around them and they buried them. And in the tradition, you bury the tobacco tie and you make a wish. So all these stakeholders were making wishes and blessings for the youth and for the Indigenous Youth Center. Isn't that amazing? Leanne said, she said, if something doesn't feel right, then don't do it. If something is just doing the way you've always done it, do it differently. All right, quick survey, quick show of hands. Who here is inspired by Leanne's story? Yes? Yes. Now, here's what I want to point out. Maybe as you just heard me share Leanne's story, maybe a little something shifted inside of you as it did for me. Maybe as you heard Leanne's story, you thought, oh, yeah, there's something really powerful about being real with these people that I'm caring for. And yeah, there's something powerful about challenging these things that don't feel right in my soul. Maybe some of you in this room all of a sudden feel empowered when you go back to your places of work, to your charities. You're like, maybe we need to question some of the things that we've been doing too. The change happens in real time as we hear the story. Now, one last thing is I want to draw your attention to the USAY website. We talk about bringing mission, vision, values to life. So I went to their website, and I was curious to look at their mission and vision. And I want to just focus in on one of these, this value of respect. Listen to these words: adaptability to change that includes resilience and versatility. Now, these are just like words on a website normally, but when you hear Leanne's story, to me, all of a sudden these words just jump right off the page when you hear about the versatility and the resiliency in the way that Leanne approaches her work with USAY. Now, I want to tell you one more story about Karen. So Karen and her husband John started the Safe Haven Foundation back in 1996. And they started this foundation really based on a question that John asked Karen. John said to Karen, he said, hey, what do you wish that you had when you were a little girl that you didn't have? And she said, I wish that I had a safe place to call home, that I knew where I was going to be sleeping every night, and I knew where my next meal was going to be coming from. And based on the power of that question, Karen and John went on to create Haven's Way, which provides these long-term home environments for 14 to 24-year-old girls. There's something that I love so much in Karen's sharing. She said, we don't call them social workers. We call them live-in house parents. Our role is to create that family environment, to create that place where they feel that sense of care, of love, of having these parents, maybe the parents that they didn't have. Young girls have been impacted from this program, like Melissa. Melissa was the very first girl that they welcomed into the program back in 2000. And Melissa is now still paying it forward from that initial time that she had. Now she is back opening her home to people, giving back, and she's even part of the inspiration for Havens Harbor, which is a new initiative that they created to help young women who were a little bit older as they went through post-secondary. There's 120 girls that have been through Havens Way and Havens Harbor. There's 120 girls who have risen above the challenges and who have become living examples of the change that we wish to see in the world. And all of this is just because of a question that proves that one thought, one question can create a remarkable change. Karen shared with me, she was at an event that they were hosting, and it was a wonderful event, and somebody walked up to her and said, "Oh, Karen, look at what you and John have created." And she corrected them. She said, No, this is not what John and I created. This is what a community created. This is what the Calgary Foundation created. They were there from day one, and they have been walking with us for 25 years. She said, this is what gets created when we come together, when we believe in possibilities, and we decide that every human being matters. Last thing I'll share is Karen shared with me, we heard earlier about these investment impact loans. And so they were applying for this investment impact loan because they were building a new building and they needed to sort of bridge the gap. And so Karen came in and they did their presentation to the Calgary Foundation, and the Calgary Foundation was paying close attention. And then a little while later, Karen gets a call. She gets a call from Alex, who we saw in the video. And he said, "Karen, I have to tell you something. We were inspired by your vision, and we were talking about your vision to one of our anonymous donors. And I want you to know that you have $1 million coming your way." And I still remember the smile on Karen's face as she told me this story. She was like, "Peter, it was like winning the lottery." She said, because of that money, we could move this project along, we could get the renovation done. It put us in momentum, she said, but most of all, that money meant that we got this place built sooner, which meant not one more night of a girl being out there vulnerable, homeless, without a safe place to call home. That's what that money made possible. Karen described the Calgary Foundation as these guardian angels, and she's also liked me to tell you that she'd like to nominate herself to be president of the Calgary Foundation fan club. So, now, this is an amazing story, right? It's an amazing story. But again, let's look at the recipe of the success. To me, there's so many in that story. Number one, this idea of, hey, we're not just gonna put people, these young girls, in a home and be kind of this social worker relationship. We're gonna create this family environment. Think about the power of that. Think about the power of a great question. And something else I pulled from Karen's story is, that pitch that she gave to the Calgary Foundation. You never know who's listening and what might happen. It just reminds us every conversation really counts. And maybe as you hear Karen's story, maybe you feel that little sense of inspiration that I did too, of wow, what's it like to have that inspiring future vision? And maybe you just feel a little more motivated to follow through on it. Last thing is I want to go back to the Safe Haven website here, and I want to draw your attention to their amazing mission statement, but in particular to this vision. So these are words on a website: a world where young women and girls are free to heal, learn, grow, and contribute, honored for their potential and empowered by their experiences. When we celebrate Karen's story, these aren't just words on a page. This is a future vision that has manifested. This is what's possible. This is what a vision looks like fulfilled. This is what happens when you have a vision and you actually follow through on it with the support of wonderful organizations like the Calgary Foundation. Now, I could keep going. I really could keep going. But I want to make sure that I give you, how do you take this and bring this home? How do you bring this home to your organizations? And so I've created a little something for you to help you do exactly that. And it's all based on this quote. We saw great evidence of this in the story I just shared, and this is a quote by David Cooperrider, who's the founder of Appreciative Inquiry, which is the facilitation approach that I use in my work. And he said, "The seeds of change are planted in the questions that we ask." And so I created some questions for you that are based on the same framework that I use in my thousands of interviews. They're based on the same framework I use within the organizations that I work with, that I did with my siblings. And I want to show you just a little bit how you might customize those questions to be relevant for you and whatever you're going to from here. So, in order to create some customized questions, I was like, all right, I need some source material. So my favorite thing is to go to people's websites. And so I went to the Calgary Foundation website, and I was like, okay, if I were writing a question for the Calgary Foundation that they could use, how do we bring these values, accountability, compassion, excellence, inclusiveness, integrity, how do we actually bring those things to life? And so I wrote this question. This is so simple. What is a story you can share of a moment where you experienced accountability, compassion, excellence, inclusiveness, integrity here at the Calgary Foundation? Imagine if every single person at the Calgary Foundation answered this question. You would literally have a playbook on how to bring these values to life. You would have the inspiration, you'd have the know-how on how to actually live out those values. It already exists. It's just about bringing them to life. All right, the second question that I want to share with you, before I do, quick survey, who here is dealing with change? I'm glad you laughed because that was intended, all right? So the next question that I want to give you is a question that is like, it's a magical helper when it comes to navigating change. And the question is, again, using Calgary Foundation as an example, what is something you love about how we show up here at the Calgary Foundation? And again, you can insert your own values, your own organization, and that no matter what changes, you would want to continue. One of the things that makes people the most resistant to change is the feeling that everything is going to change. And so before you're introducing any kind of change, a new policy, a new technology, new anything, give your people an opportunity to pause and reflect on this question. This allows them to anchor in the things that are actually still within their control. You unlock your organizational wisdom through a question like this. And last but not least, you've heard me use this wording a lot already. Probably my favorite question of all time is a future visioning question. If we have the good fortune of being back here 1 year from today, what would you most like to be celebrating? We are wired as human beings to look for what's wrong, what's broken. But we can sort of bypass that circuitry by putting ourselves in a place where we have an inspiring future vision that actually put us into momentum towards creating it. The last thing I'm going to say, and I've added this in, is, because it just feels particularly relevant, is if we don't define what matters most, and if we don't celebrate it consistently, then it's easy for what matters most to get lost. It's easy for other people to start defining what matters most on our behalf. And guess what? What matters most to them might not be aligned with our values and the way that we want to be in the world. And I think we all see evidence of this. We see leaders who celebrate mistrust, deception, the loss of rights and freedoms. And so we want to be really careful about what we celebrate, because if not, that's what we become, and we see that happen much more quickly than we ever could have imagined. And so these questions that I've written for you are just a little gateway into helping make sure that you're defining what matters most to you and your organizations, and that you are celebrating them consistently. All right, we're coming to the end right here. I want to do one last thing to kind of land the plane. And I'll be quite transparent with you that even though I talk about this, even though I do this work, relatively recently I was struggling to actually live this. My partner and I, we've been trying to have a baby for 5 years, and yes, I know how it works, okay? And as fun as that sounds, to just keep trying, after 5 years, it's not as fun as it sounds. It's actually like the worst thing I've ever experienced. It's just heart-wrenching. And for any of you out there who resonate with that in a deeper way, my heart truly goes out to you. And what was happening was I was kind of losing all sense of joy in my life. I was really struggling with that. And, I'm somebody who's really aware that my minutes are precious. You heard me sing about it in that song. Like, I had a really big cancer scare when I was 19 years old and, was given a percentage of survival. And so I know, I got to make the most of my minutes, but I found myself just not making the most of my minutes. I just felt like I just wasn't experiencing joy anymore. And so I thought, well, okay, if I really practice what I preach and we become what we celebrate, then how do I celebrate my way into more joy in my life? And so I came up with a little tool. And I thought, okay, I can't have the full like joy meal right now, but I can have joy snacks. Joy snacks. So joy snacks are these like little bite-sized moments of joy that all of you can find in your day. I'll give you a couple quick examples, okay? Meeting finishes at 10:57. Next meeting is at 11, obviously. 3 minutes. What do most of us do? Pull out our phone, scroll, 3 minutes, wasted. I have primed my brain to be like, oh, this is joy snack time. So what do? I run outside, see if there's a little sun in the sky, let it hit my face. Joy snack. Or, even better yet, let me know if you resonate with this. Somebody cancels a meeting. Right? They're like, I'm so sorry. You're like, it's okay. You owe me, but it's okay, right? This is prime joy snack time, all right? All of a sudden, you got a half an hour, you got an hour. You were supposed to be in that meeting. I'm like, joy snack time. So I run. Sometimes if I go to a coffee shop near me, like get a coffee, like sip it like it's Sunday morning, even though it's Tuesday afternoon. It's like joy snack. Sometimes I like to survey the audience and hear about some of your joy snacks. The other day, this woman put her hand up and she was like, going pee. I was like, yes, you're all going to do that right after this, right? You'll be like, joy snack, You didn't need that visual, did you, right? So, but there you go. I did it, all right? So I was thinking to myself, sorry. I was thinking to myself, okay, like I want to make sure we end with some kind of joy snack here tonight. What could we possibly do? And I thought about it, and I thought, what could be more joyful than a wonderful group of Calgarians singing a Beyonce song with a Juno Award losing singer-songwriter. Yes? Yes? Okay. All right. Now, I already know, I'm a bit of a mind reader. I know some of you are thinking to yourselves, you're like, Peter, I'm not so familiar with all of Beyonce's catalog. And so I have gone to the great trouble of writing the lyrics that you'll be singing out for you. So here they come. There they are. Okay, all right? So those are your lyrics. And quite frankly, if you can't sing that, I can't help you. All right, that's on you. That's not on me. So we're going to attempt to do a 2-part harmony. If your birthday is January 1st to June 30th, please put your hands up. Okay, this is your part. It goes like this. Some men are like, fellas, if that's a little high, you just do it down the octave, all right? Just ooh. Hit approximately those notes, and we'll be in good shape. All right, let's do a practice round. Ready? 3, 4. Very good. Okay. Very good. I mean, not like Fort McLeod level, but like pretty good. Okay, all right. Okay. Now, if your birthday is July 1st to December 31st, put your hands up. Okay. This is your part. It's even higher, right? But here's the thing. You've been alive for 6 months longer than the first group. So I'm challenging you, okay? It makes sense, trust me. All right, so let's do a practice round. 3, 4. Pretty good, okay. All right, the last thing you need to know is you need to know when to start singing and when to stop singing, okay? So the cue to start singing is this. My hands are busy, all right? And the cue to stop singing is this. And I know they look similar, but the difference is if you're not singing, start. If you are singing, stop. Cool. All right. Glad we covered all that together. All right. So, I'm gonna build a little loop. I'll give you the signal. You got the lyrics up there in case you forget them. All right. And hey, as much as this is a little fun, little joy snack way to end our time together, my hope is that there's a little point behind it as well. If you think about it, this thing we're about to do is an unexpected outcome as a result of all of you being here, as a result of everything you've done in your life to find yourself in this moment. To me, it's another little reminder that we don't actually know the impacts that we create. We just know that when we show up, when we define what matters most, when we celebrate it consistently, we set in motion the potential for all kinds of amazing impacts and outcomes to occur. So let's get our Beyonce on. This is my version of the Queen Bee's Halo, featuring the wonderful Calgary Foundation supporting humans, choir, and possibly dancers. We'll see what happens. Okay, so, yeah, that's right. Okay, all right. So here we go. I'll give you this, I'll build a loop, give you a signal, and then we're off to the races. That's your note. Here we go. Just do this with your lips, even if you're not singing, okay? All right, here comes the signal. Remember those walls are built, baby, they're tumbling down. They didn't even put up a fight, they didn't even make a sound. I found a way to let you in, but I never really had a doubt. Standing in the light of your halo, I've got my angels now. It's like I've been awakened, every rule you had me breaking. It's the risk that I'm taking. I ain't never gonna shut you out. And everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I could see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. And everything I need and more, it's written all over your face. Baby, I can feel your halo. Here we go. I pray it won't fade away. I can see your halo. Keep that going, keep that going. I can see your halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. I can see your halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. All right, come on, everybody. And everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I can see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. And everything I need and more, it's written all over your face. Baby, I can feel your halo. I pray you won't fade away. I can see your halo. I can see your halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. I could see your halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Halo, halo, halo. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you again to the wonderful crew here, Jordan, Mike, and everybody behind the scenes. Thanks again to the amazing Calgary Foundation. If you go there, there's a couple questions. I always like to survey the audience, and then, of course, it'll give you access to the slides. And if you really don't want to fill out the questions, you can just skip them and get the slides. All right. So, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks to Speaker Spotlight, and it's been a real pleasure to be with all of you. Have a great night.
Wow, how do you follow that? Thunderbolt for the soul. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Peter. A powerful, inspirational presentation. I know I'll be taking those messages away with me, as I'm sure many of you will, and will be thinking about those joy moments, probably for days, weeks, and I hope forever. So thank you for that gift. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I'm Narmin Ismail-Teja. I have had the privilege of serving as a board member with the Calgary Foundation since 2020, and just this past month formally stepped into the role of chair. That means, although I've been into this event many times, it is my first time as chair at the Vital City event. I'm honored to step into this role, and even more honored to do so at this milestone year that you've heard of our 70th anniversary. That means 7 decades of impact. And you heard a whole lot about the kind of impact that we're having in Eva's presentation. 7 decades of generosity, thanks to so many of you who are here with us today, and 7 decades of people coming together to create real change in our community. So thank you. I have the privilege of working with an outstanding board, and you probably met many of them earlier, and if not, you will probably catch many of them on the way out. And on their behalf, I'd like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to President and CEO Eva Friesen, and really to the entire Calgary Foundation team. Their dedication, their passion, their hard work is really what makes things happen. All the work that you heard about tonight, it's really thanks to this incredible team that works every day to connect the dots and to bring people together to make things happen. So let's give them a real round of applause. I'd also like to thank once again our sponsors for their generous support. That's Crestpoint Real Estate Investments Limited and Modern Rentals. You help us extend our reach, deepen our impact, and really couldn't be doing this without you. As we look ahead to the next decade now, the challenges that we're trying to navigate at a time when it seems like, although we've accomplished so much, much of it seems to be threatened. The work of our community foundation to contribute to the community where everyone can live and thrive is really important. That work is made easier, more enjoyable when we do it together, and we heard so much about that already. We've heard if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I look forward to traveling with you in going far together in the decades ahead. So thank you to each of you for being here tonight, being here every day with the Calgary Foundation, and like to celebrate you for the work that you do. And because it's the 70th anniversary deserves a little celebration, you won't be going home empty-handed tonight. On your way out, please pick up a custom Calgary Foundation tote bag. It's perfect for carrying your groceries, your books, your board materials. Show it off and show your support for the Calgary Foundation and really for the Calgary community. So as we wrap up today, thank you for being here. Thanks for your support, for the role that you play in working with us to create this thriving community where everyone belongs. Travel safe, enjoy those joy snacks, and look forward to celebrating again with you a year from now. Have a good evening. Thank you.